Limerence is not a character flaw. It's an emotional echo or an emotional desire from your earliest unmet needs. And if you've ever wondered why you fall too fast, love too deeply, or get stuck on someone who doesn't choose you back, this video will change the way you understand yourself. Although limerence is a mental fantasy exercise, is a form of parasocialism if you're into celebrities, it also is an obsession. Okay, these things we cannot really deny, but it isn't a character weakness or a character flaw, and this is something that I hope that you understand. Okay, it's actually the resurfacing of something much older and much deeper within you. Something that began long before the person you are stuck on ever appeared in your life. So let's kind of rewind a little to talk about what limerence actually is. Whenever we think of limerence, we think, it means that I am a crazy person, I am overreacting, and I'm all alone in this because nobody understands limerence and nobody understands the feelings that I have the way that I do. Okay? Limerence is a mental fantasy. Yes, it is. But more importantly, it's what I call an emotional displacement. Your nervous system is replaying an old attachment wound and projecting that onto a new person. Okay, the longings and the desires, all of that is very real, but the meaning that you attach to the longing and the desire and your limerent object, all of that is inherited from what happened in your past. So think of limerence as a flare-up of an emotional pattern that you've carried your entire life. And your limerent object is a conduit for that emotional pattern to appear. So here's a bit of the surprising part. From what I've noticed in my work with many women who struggle with limerence, they are actually essentially deeply intuitive, highly sensitive women and very emotionally perceptive as well. Many of them are actually able to very, deeply and accurately describe the emotions that they are actually feeling. And they are very sensitive to their own energies and other people's energies as well. So if you're someone who is limerent, okay, you experienced limerence before, you're probably someone who is very energetically in tune with someone else's energy. Okay, you pick up the cues very quickly, you observe what they are doing and how they might be feeling, and you read emotional shifts instantly and react very quickly to that as well. Okay, so that sensitivity is kind of, it's always with someone else. But sensitivity, okay, without any sort of grounding in reality, what this then becomes over time is hypervigilance, which brings about a whole lot of anxiety for you. This is why so many limerent people tend to be very, very anxious individuals. Okay? Deep intuition, deep sensitivity without emotional safety becomes projection, and it can become fantasy and delusion as well over time, because these things that we feel for someone is not rooted in reality. So I just want to talk a little bit about the nervous system loop in limerence and about this concept of longing as survival for your limerence, for your nervous system. So limerence is the body saying, I recognize this pattern, I know this pain, this feels really familiar, maybe I can fix it this time. But when your deeper trauma or emotional wiring hasn't been healed, you get drawn repeatedly and unconsciously into the limerence cycle, which is incredibly addictive. Because when you have a fantasy, okay, this is how the limerence cycle works. So when you have a fantasy of someone that you see, or someone that, who treats you really well, or some kind of connection that you actually have, or maybe you see a celebrity on TV, okay, that kickstarts your fantasy, that whole fantasy thing, that you have. When you think, when your fantasies are actually in your head, you have this it kicks off a dopamine high. So it kicks off a high, you get very pleasurable feelings, you feel really happy, really good, awesome, life is great, life is amazing. And then after a while, because as with everything dopamine, it is not going to last that long in your nervous system. So dopamine, whatever goes up tends to come down, and when your dopamine crashes, okay, that's when you start to feel that kind of like depressive kind of feelings. You start to feel very down. You start to question whether your limerent object really likes you or not. You start to wonder, you start to think about a lot of things. Okay, so this is then what kickstarts the rumination stuff. So this person like me? Is this celebrity attached? Are they meant to be with me? And all these things, when you ruminate, it actually creates a very, very deep sense of longing. So you start to long for the person, you start to get very sentimental, you start to get very, you start to feel very sad, okay? You're longing for someone who is not there with you, but someone that you actually really desire. So this is a cycle, and you rinse and repeat. Because when you long for the person, then you go and you look at their photos, or you go and look at text messages that you have with them, and you start to then kick off that whole fantasy bit again. So it's going back to stage 1. So you repeat this cycle over and over again. But your body isn't chasing a person per se, okay? It can feel like that when you're limerent. So you kind of feel like, your body actually, you really, really, really want this person, okay? But it's not that your limerent object is very special, or that, your body is only chasing your limerent object. It could actually literally be anybody. Okay, I've been limerent for so many people in my life, both celebrities and non-celebrities, that it's the exact same cycle with each and every person. So they are all individually not that special, okay, in terms of my limerence, okay. Though, of course, I thought that they were like the only one meant for me, the only amazing person in the world at that time when I was limerent for them. But my body wasn't chasing for them. My nervous system wasn't attached to this specific person. It was attached to the feelings that I actually had when I actually thought of this person, when I was limerent for this person. My nervous system was so wired to actually have that, dopamine high, that crash, that rumination, that longing, that I go through the same cycle with every limerent object that I had. Your body essentially is chasing painful familiarity by recreating your wounds over and over again. And by doing so, when you keep recreating things, it's like scratching a scab or scratching a wound over and over again without letting it heal. So your wounds, whatever trauma that you had, whatever experiences that you had that actually led you to being limerent, is not being healed. And which is why you keep getting caught up in limerence over and over again. The next thing that I would kind of like to talk about is your inner child. Okay? So every limerent attachment has a child self underneath it. Okay, think about how you were like as a child. Maybe you were someone who kept waiting for people to give you affection. You were someone who actually felt very ignored and very abandoned by the people around you, by your caregivers. And maybe you were abandoned, there was some sort of family trauma there. Maybe you were a girl who wanted to connect with people, but whenever you tried to connect, you were always ignored, you were always rebuffed, you were always rejected. Maybe you were always overlooked. Maybe your family was very big, or maybe your caregivers or your parents were very busy with their own stuff, and your emotional needs were always kind of overlooked. Maybe you were someone who actually, hoped that finally someone will actually see that you exist, and stop and choose you, Maybe, you thought that love meant earning it, doing things to actually earn affection from someone. It meant proving things to people. It meant fixing something in their lives to make their lives better so that they will actually like you. And maybe, to you, it meant holding on to something that actually shouldn't be held on to. Okay? Limerence in your adulthood is that younger child, that child side of you saying that, maybe this time if I did this again, maybe if I showed my affection, maybe if I attached myself, maybe if I tried to get their attention, this time the consequence will be very different for me. Maybe this time when I do that, my limerent object will actually fall in love with me. The celebrity that I love or I'm limerent for will start to, notice me in the crowd and fall in love with me. But the truth is, this time is never different from any of the previous times. It's not because you're unworthy. It's not because you can't be loved. It's not because love is not meant for you, but because you are repeating a specific wound instead of healing it. And we tend to repeat certain attachment patterns from childhood unconsciously. Okay, so the way that your parents or your caregivers related to you or treated you growing up, we tend to repeat those dynamics unconsciously. And sometimes these are things that we are not aware of until we get into a real life relationship with someone, or until, we start to get, to build a very, very deep emotional attachment with someone. So moving on a little bit into this space, this energetic space, which I kind of want to talk about. I use a energetic 5-element framework, which is adapted from BaZi, which is a ancient Chinese metaphysical system. And I love it because it is so accurate and it's so in tune with the energies that all of us carry, because all of you carry a certain vibration, a certain vibe, a certain energy. And in the 5-element framework, each of the 5 elements are naturally occurring. Okay, fire, water, earth, wood, and metal. And each one actually represents or responds to emotional threats differently. Okay, each element has its own energy and will respond to different dynamics differently. So an underbalance or an overbalance of each of the elemental energy can actually bring about different urges and changes within us. Okay, this is also why 2 different people can experience limerence, but it can be for very different reasons and it can manifest in many different ways. So for example, if you are a fire type of person, okay, you have a lot of fire in your elemental chart. Fire, when there's an underbalance or overbalance, it actually leads to fantasy. Okay, you light up very quickly. You see, hope becomes your safety blanket and you can get too far ahead of yourself, and get over passionate about someone who might not actually have your best interests at heart. And the next element, which is water, okay, water sometimes when it's underbalanced or overbalanced represents fear. Okay, water is your intuition shutting down, your feelings running ahead of your body and of reality and sometimes of common sense. And water can also lead to fears. Okay, you fear losing something that you never actually had in the first place. If you're someone who's very earth dominant, think about the earth around you. It's very stable, it's very steady, it's always there. It can actually lead to rumination, okay? Longing for someone you cannot have, but you constantly do not want to move on from that. You overthink, you analyze every single behavior of the person, you analyze every single text, you try to stabilize the connection through emotional labor. So you try to think and think and think and hope that, maybe your thoughts will actually turn into reality. Earth can also be very stubborn. So, I do have quite a bit of earth in my chart, and it can be very difficult for me to actually move on from someone previously when I was limerent, when I actually got very stuck into the idea that they were the one for me. Okay, earth can be very, very stuck and very rooted. Wood. Okay, wood is, think about the trees and the creepers and the plants around you. Wood is all about growth. Okay, it grows upwards. So when it's underbalanced or overbalanced, it can lead to idealism or seeing potential in someone which is actually not reality. So you tend to choose or chase potential, and you chase growth and believe that you can actually reach the person if you actually do certain things, or you actually effort, or you actually look better, or you actually are better, and things like that. So you hope that they can see you, and at the same time you hope that they will evolve in such a way that they are actually, that they actually fall in love with you. So I have quite a bit of wood in my chart as well, and it can be very dangerous because wood can always keep chasing a potential or chasing an ideal fantasy of a person that doesn't really exist. Okay, they are not really like that. You just think they are. The 5th and the last element, last but not least, is an overbalance or underbalance of metal can actually lead to internal collapse. Okay, so you freeze, you are unable to do anything else in your life because you're limerent. You are so focused on your limerent object, you are unable to actually do the things that you love. You wait for their approval, you feel small and unworthy. Okay, so metal is collapsing within, and you become smaller, and you feel smaller and smaller and smaller. So knowing your dominant element actually reveals your love wound pattern. And if you're interested to find out what mix of elements you are and how this is actually affecting your energy, your life in general, and the people that you attract, you can drop me a message at my IG handle in the description below, and I will actually read your chart for you. I do not want you to think of this as like, oh, no, this is 5 elements and that it has nothing to do with me. The thing is, I want you to think about it in terms of energy. Each one of us carries energy, and this energy in the context of limerence can actually make or break whether you heal from your limerence cycle or not. Okay? And kind of thinking about one of the things I want you to think about, and it's also one of the things I actually talk about a lot in my work, is your shadow self. Every one of us has a shadow side and a light side. Okay, and under every limerent attachment is one wound. I will be chosen if I hold on long enough. And this shadow side usually is formed from emotional invisibility, early abandonment in life, emotional unavailability from people around you, inconsistent love, growing up too fast, being overlooked for other people in your life, over-functioning in relationships, confusing intensity with connection. And all these things are not your fault, okay? We are all a product of our environment and our circumstances in our childhood. But this has become your pattern until it is healed. And why do I say this is a shadow side of you? This is because our shadow self is part of us, but it is not integrated, within us. Many of us do not like to admit that we have this shadow side of ourselves. We are not aware of it, and even if we are not very accepting of it. Just think of your shadow. Your shadow is kind of outside of you, right? But it's kind of you as well. And if you do not integrate or accept, your shadow, it can actually cause a lot of problems, because you tend to find yourself drawn to situations, drawn to people, again, getting triggered by various things when you can't really explain why. And those situations and those people are actually not making you very happy, but you can't really articulate or explain why. And that's when, there's actually your shadow that is actually triggering something in you, and it's actually a call to you to face your shadow, learn how to accept it, and to integrate it into your character or into your core self. So, just to recap, limerence is unresolved shadow and a mix of a dysregulated nervous system, energetic imbalance, as well as your inner child longing for completion now that you are an adult. And when you understand the root causes, you will no longer blame yourself for the symptoms, and you'll be well on your way to actually healing limerence. So if this spoke to you, I have a free mini class coming up soon and a weekly newsletter where I share deeper tools on healing the pattern beneath limerence, intuitive rebuilding, energetic love wounds, and inner child repair. Okay, all the links are down below. I also have a workshop coming up, which I'll put more details down below. And I also have a book on limerence. And you also can follow me on Instagram, where I post a lot of stuff on just healing limerence in general and becoming the person that you want to be. So I hope this video has been useful. I hope it has also made you think a little bit about your inner child, your energy, your energy makeup, your shadow self, and learn to think and reflect on these things. I'll be back in the next video with more information. So right now, I just hope that, wherever you are on your way to healing more, and I will see you in the next one.